was closer to the opera, I would say, in the tone of it. And beautiful, it was born from the Ravel Piano Concerto Number 3, which is an adagio, but then it suddenly became a requiem. But bands that were really influential for me to find some moments in Beautiful was Radiohead, their last album, Rainbows. I think is one of the most amazing albums ever. There's a song that is called Weird Fishes that it was incredibly important. I have to say that Miles Davis played a big role in Beautiful. I wrote basically all the script with Miles Davis, and Ravel. I think those three elements were.
Well, and I maybe you can not to. I do want to, you know. I guess one thing I wanted to follow up with is that you said that when I think you were with your family when you heard the Ravel song, and that's a great story. So maybe I'll give you a chance if you'd like to tell it.
No, I just was playing in that time that Ravel piano concerto a lot, and when we were traveling to Telluride Film Festival, I played it, and when it finished, my two kids that were in that time like 9 and 12, they start crying simultaneously after the song finished. I said, what happened? We were in these beautiful woods arriving to Telluride, and they just told me how emotional that music made them feel, how melancholic, how sad, how many memories, because they were really silent during the song. They didn't complain. They didn't say, Father, stop that. That would be the normal reaction. But they just went impacted by it, maybe suffering it, but at the same time enjoying it, and it was a ride for them, and both of them start crying. So I understood the impact of this song that ended up being the father theme in the film.
Amazing. Well, another thing that I think was an influence from what I've read, and I think it's fascinating because I didn't think about it until I'd read it, but when did you first see the Kurosawa film Akira? And how did that influence your approach to this film? I think it's very interesting what you've said about this.
I saw it a long time ago, and then when I was writing and starting to write the sketches of the characters, I began to get some novels and some films about people going through difficult periods of illness and things, So, I read Ivan Illich from Tolstoy and see Kurosawa's film, Akira. And obviously it was an amazing reward experience in order to see how something that can be predictable can be turned in something completely outstanding or surprising or inevitable. Kurosawa masterfully just changed in the middle of the story the perspective, and it moved to a structure that is incredibly smart. And I didn't want to do that, and it was just an inspired way to see a character dealing with their last time of his life, and obviously it's inspiring to see that, mine is completely different.
Right.
But I was inspired, for example, that Kurosawa was able to explore a very existential moment of a character criticizing the social structure of Japan after the Second World War.
Right.
And I think that was inspiring too for me.
And talking about sound again, the sound of silence, there's a moment in Akira where that happens, and then the moment at the bar, which I think was a nice homage, where a guy who hasn't even told his ex-wife that he's dying confides in a stranger.
Yeah, because it's incredible that the master of Kurosawa was a master of form and substance. And I found too, when I was doing a lot of research of people who is basically ill and they know they will die, most of them reject that, and most of them doesn't really share that with their loved ones because they don't want to really hurt. So it's a real nature. It's not a dramatic situation. It's a real human behavior that he explored. And yes, of course, I want to explore it too because I thought it was fascinating.
I wanted to ask you, there are very few directors who can get such loyalty from the people they work with as you. You've had, I looked at it, on almost all or all of your films, the same cinematographer, film editor, composer, and up until now you worked with the same screenwriter. How how important is it for you to work with the same team over and over? Does it really, I guess it's hard to compare because I guess you haven't done it another way, but does it really make things easier from what you hear when other people talk about, having to put together the pieces each time rather than becoming a well-oiled machine?
More than loyalty is, I pay them very well. Nice. That's true. Well, I think that, in a way, it's much more easier, and at the same time, it gets you to easier way to work and communicate ideas, and you begin to develop a relation where you begin to understand things, and you grow with them. I'm extremely privileged to have and count with the talent of Rodrigo and Mirione and Santolaya, because obviously Rodrigo, Brigitte, Brock, we have been friends since before I became a filmmaker, so suddenly we share a common past, and we get along outside of when we do films.
Right.
So suddenly you are growing, you are changing with them, so in a way it's easier, faster, and you become kind of a cinematographic, a family playing different concerts in different territories of the world. And filmmaking, it's a strange territory in that sense, because no matter who you are working, it's a very lonely job. In a way, you have to make the last decision, and even when there's 227 elements in one little frame, but there's 220,000 frames that each of them you will have to decide, and inside of each one, nothing will be moved if you don't approve. You are lonely in this collaborative orgy, but you know what I mean? So what is incredible for me is that I can really communicate, and now they know how I work and how I want to subordinate everything, every element that they can bring. They understand how to really serve the only one vision, to serve the drama and the characters, which is my responsibility. So in that sense, I feel that everybody knows the rules of the game, you know what I mean?
I hope I can just close with one, one quick one and then one real one. The first quick one, you spent, I read, 1 year, 2 months editing?
1 year, 2 months, yeah.
That's not usual, right? That's longer than, quite a bit
longer.
Long.
Yeah, this film, even when it's an expression of a simple mind living in a very complex times, with the themes that are explored there, and it seems like a intimate, film. This is the most complicated film that I have put together in terms of visual grammar, and the architecture of this film is much more complicated than what it seems. And to get the performances that you got there with actors, non-actors, and everything, I have to be sometimes shooting 50 takes. So when you arrive with such amount of material and such many jewels, you have to put them together and to get the right tone to mix the genre of tragedy with metaphysical elements and supernatural elements, with hyperrealism, and suddenly the things became much more complex. It's not a branding, this is not a product, this is not a Starbucks coffee kind of thing, it's not a industrial kind of thing. So to find the right tone, voice, it took me much more than I thought. But that's the age. That's how the wine ages, and hopefully it tastes a little better.
And the last quick one is just the big picture. You're 4 features in. You are the only, as far I believe, still the case, the only Mexican director ever nominated for the Oscar. You're sort of I'm sure there are a lot of young kids that are young aspiring filmmakers who look at you as a role model, and you and the Three Amigos, and people who are really breaking the mold and doing stuff that hasn't been done before. What do you hope to do in the years to come? Are you going to take some time off now and do another one after a few years again, or are you jumping right back in? And what do you see your role as in the, you're not just another director, you sort of represent a lot more than that to a lot of people.
I don't think in those terms, honestly. I think that the biggest and the only responsibility of a filmmaker is to do a good film. That's enough responsibility already. If you get that, if you get to do a good film, it's something that transcends, something that impacts. In that moment, you are doing what you have to do, which is, inspiring, affecting, provoking, being hate, being love, being inspired, whatever, or being people wanted to change that you have done, or people that wants to follow, whatever. That's the responsibility. And through my art, or through my expression, I would say, as a filmmaker, I would love to just say who I am and what kind of society I see in my point of view, without preaching, just to expose and to make a dialogue. It's a little brick in the cathedral. That's the only thing that I would like to.
Well, thank you very much.